Hello, welcome to today's IG Live. It feels like a long time since we've done this. It has been a few months. I hope everyone had a wonderful summer. We have a few days left of summer before we step into fall. And today's IG Live, we are going to be joined by Vanessa Bennett, the beautiful and wise and just amazing Vanessa Bennett, a woman who I've had the joy and pleasure of working with many times over the years, and we become friends. I hope that's true, Vanessa. I know it is. And I'm going to introduce her before I ask her to join us live. And thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. I hope you'll take this time to ask questions of our expert, Vanessa, on this next 30-minute IG Live. So Vanessa is a licensed depth psychotherapist, author, and facilitator, known for her no-nonsense yet compassionate approach to personal growth and healing. And Vanessa just wrote this beautiful book. I know it's backwards on your screen, but I hope you remember this image. Take a screenshot. It's called The Motherhood Myth. Vanessa is a depth psychologist. And so really she can share just such a broad micro and macro perspective around our soul's journeys. And of course, there's a history of psychology of humankind, mankind. And I really just think she's got such a broad perspective on our journeys in life and love and partnership and mothering. So I'm going to ask her to join us. And I'm so happy that we're doing this today.
Hello.
Hola, amiga.
Hola, amiga. Yes, we are friends, by the way. I confirm.
I can't make sure, you know.
I concur.
Vanessa, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm gonna turn my little light up here. Yeah, I appreciate having these conversations, and I know that you're somebody who can go there and go deep and is always kind of on this quest to understand and to dig deeper. So I appreciate that.
I really am. And I love the fact that you really will talk about the soul journey because really that's what we're all here. We are on we we're spiritual beings having a human experience and we're trying to navigate life. And I just think we forget that part about looking at life from this bigger perspective.
That's right.
And that's something we just talked about on the podcast is like, if we are able to look at our lives from these different viewpoints on how we got here and how we were parented is and then how we're parenting, how we are parents or we're models in their relationships and how we're learning to do it in our own way and just like the life's journey, right? It's
That's right.
complicated. Okay, so we've
Well, I
got
was
some
going to
great
say it's
questions.
complicated, but it's also like it almost simplifies it when you think about it like that. I like to think about it like that. It makes me feel more kind of grounded into the process and not so like thrown about in the storm, if you will.
Right. Okay, let's dive into the questions. And I'm
Let's do
watching
it.
the chat, so please put your questions for Vanessa in the chat, and I'll ask her for you.
Okay.
So, in relationships, how do we start owning our 100% without feeling like we're taking on all the blame?
So this is something that I think I get some form of this question a lot when people start doing their codependency recovery work, which is
Hmm.
how, to your point, how can I own my 100% when it's not all mine to own? Well, here's what I would say to that. Every dynamic, true, is a 50-50 dynamic. But in every circumstance and every situation, there is something that you can own your 100% on. So that does not mean taking on more than is yours, but that does mean completely owning what is yours. And so I give that kind of, I guess, differentiation, even though it feels nuanced, because I think so often we get into this defensive mode. And I talk a lot about how there's this coupling that many of us have with this belief that I've done something bad means I am bad.
Hmm.
And so these two things are so coupled that we're not actually able to see that they're different. So defend against taking responsibility for our part because we are defended against this belief that by taking responsibility, we're somehow bad people, right? And a lot of codependency work is actually around being able to separate those two beliefs out and sit with the discomfort that comes from owning your part. Sit with the discomfort that comes from this new belief that we're constructing, which is accepting responsibility doesn't diminish my humanity. It doesn't mean that
Hmm.
I'm any less than.
Right. I like that. I really do.
Mm.
It's like, I feel like crap about something I said or did. And like, maybe that's just it. Right. And then it's like, and taking it to heart and I want to do different, be better next time. But also exactly just being like, doesn't mean I'm not a bad person.
Nope. And I can take responsibility and say, I wasn't proud of the way that I showed up. I wasn't proud of the way that I said X, Y, and Z. I apologize for, coming at you in that way. What that also does, a lot of us think that by doing that, by owning our part, that we're somehow co-signing on the other person's bad behavior. And again, it's not the same thing. You can own your part in a dynamic without letting the other person off the hook if they're not willing to own their part either.
Yeah. Right. Is it normal to grieve the person I was before motherhood?
Yes. Yes. Let's just use a big yes here. I think any large transition in our lives, motherhood just being one of them, there is this way that we discuss it in depth psychology, which is really the understanding of this is an ego death. It is nothing less than that. You have essentially your who you were has essentially dissolved. There's a process of death that has happened. And after that death, there is a long process of liminality. You're in between. You're not who you were. You're not yet who you will become. And in that space of kind of being tossed around and being confused and not feeling grounded, there's a lot of struggle and there's a lot of grief. And we actually can't really be born into our new identity, this new existence, who it is that we're becoming without the acknowledgement of that grief and of that struggle. Because part of what happens is in the acknowledgement of that, it's integrated. It's integrated in who we are becoming. And if we don't do that process, what ends up happening is we cling. We cling to this version of ourselves and we don't allow for the growth and the integration to happen. And so at any moment, if you've gone through a large transition, for sure there will be grieving about what was lost, right? Because again, death and birth, they go hand in hand. So for every birth, there's a death. Every death, there's a birth. And so there will always be grief attached to that.
Yeah. I was talking to my best friend about this just yesterday around her daughter is in grade 12
Mm,
well, she's going to be leaving the house this next
yep.
year. And she's like, I'm already like just really freaking out. Right?
Yes,
How am I
sure.
gonna she's already starting the grieving process, going like, this is gonna be hard. Like it's hard to be in the present, but you're also freaking out. What am I gonna do when she leaves? Like it's gonna be this whole new transition. And that's a lot of my friends are going through that. It's like empty nesting. Now what? Right?
Right,
There's gonna
right.
be a grieving period.
There is. There is. I mean, it's the our generation again, where a lot of us are in this like perimenopause, menopause situation. There's also grief in that. Like there is a transition in our who we are, in our identities that's happening. But so often, if we don't allow the space for that discomfort, because look, it's the unknown, right? And we're all uncomfortable with the unknown. But if we don't make space for that and we don't honor that grief, again, there will be a lot of clinging. And actually, that is far more painful than the allowance of the discomfort.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're so uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. Totally.
How do you believe most of us are in some way codependent? So you really know so much about codependency, Vanessa. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been the thing that I've been the most obsessed with in my career. And I definitely think that I speak about it in a way that's a little bit different than a lot of people because I really do believe that we are a codependent society. I
Mm.
think it's really just the way that we are taught to engage with other people. It's what we're taught love should look like, feel like, sound like. And really what that means is that, my sense of self is based outside of myself. My sense of worthiness, my sense of goodness, my sense of am I okay, my sense of being okay is based outside of myself. I need to make sure that others are okay so that I feel okay. right? And I can't be okay in my skin without also looking outside of myself. And when you think about the way that we are as a society, you know, we're a very kind of outwardly oriented society. We live in capitalism, right? And so capitalism teaches us to feel better by buying things. You'll be prettier if you buy this new treatment. You'll look cooler if you buy these new shoes. You know, you'll be more respected if you buy this fancier car. And so we live in a system that's actually designed to continue to function based on our looking outside of ourselves. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why some of this work is so radical, because it's not just personal evolution. You're actually changing within a structure that's been designed to keep you from changing.
Mm-hmm. So how are you helping people with just like it's really like a lot of work just to even just take a look at your life, right? And how you're operating like day to day, moment by
Mm-hmm.
moment. Are
Mm-hmm.
you doing it for external reasons or are you doing it for like how what would be one way to ways to look at it differently?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of times, and I've recognized this in my therapy practice a lot, where people will come to me, especially parents, actually, people will come to me, and they'll say, you know, they want to do these changes because, for example, I don't want to pass these things down to my kids, right? I get that a lot. And a lot of times I'll say, listen, at the end of the day, yes, the work should be about you and for you, because no lasting change comes from doing work for somebody else, right? However, if you need that external thing or that external person to be that fire that's lit, great. Like, have that be the fire that's lit. And then once you're in there and you start to get a taste of what it's like to come home to yourself, you get a taste of what it's like to stand on your own feet and to have that solid sense of who you are, then I promise you it will start to shift and it will start to change, and you will start to do it just as much for yourself as like for your kids,
Hmm.
for example, you know, but don't let that be a reason not to do the work. If that's what you need as motivation, then I say go for it.
Yeah, for sure. All couples have sexual dynamics, meaning sex is more than just sex. How can couples explore what's really underneath their sexual dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, we say this in kind of the therapy world a lot. I think Esther Perel talks about this as well, where sex is never just about sex. So
Mm.
when clients come in and they're talking about, you know, their sex and their relationships with couples, a lot of times what we're talking about is power dynamics. We're talking about feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling valued, feeling desired, feeling important, right? I would say so rarely it's about the actual act of sex. And so I think first and foremost, we talk about that with my clients. Like the three of us will sit down, especially when I'm working with couples, and we'll say like, what is it that we're really talking about here? Right.
Mm.
And many times too, it's about eros. It's about our feeling of aliveness. It's about
Hmm.
what brings us a feeling of being connected to something larger than ourselves, to a feeling of elation and joy, right? And so being able to explore that area with clients usually is so much more productive, because we think our very linear society tells us, well, if you're having sex 2 to 3 times a week, then that's that, check, right?
Hmm.
And most of us know that that's not actually true.
But really, why are you having sex together, right? Why, right?
I mean, that's the other thing. Good point, Robert. I mean, often people will come in and it's like, well, my sex life is great. And, you know, we're having sex 3 times a week. And again, it's like very check mark. And then we start to unravel things and we start to see all of these different dynamics that are going on. You start to realize that sex, like other ways in a relationship, is being used kind of as a pacifier, as a way to keep things from, you know, keeping the boat from rocking, as a way to save face, as a way to not have to actually be intimate, have hard conversations, right? We just have sex. So it's fascinating when you work with sex, because it's, again, just so rarely that's what you're actually talking about.
Yeah. What are the dangers of expecting our partners to heal us?
Mm, well, there's a lot of dangers, but I think the first danger is putting them into a parental role. I think
That,
one of the, I think that could be like,
you're seeing a lot of this, right? In
yes,
partnerships
I
where
see a lot of
there's a lot
this.
of parentification of your partner.
Yes, a lot of it. You know, and
Yeah.
I think again, like while I love attachment theory, I think that this is something that I've seen come out of our kind of obsession with attachment theory. I've seen more and more of the justification for parentifying the other person, because we come together and we think, oh, it's in this partnership that I'm going to become securely attached. It's this person's job to make sure, if I'm anxious, that I feel secure and that I don't feel abandoned and that I feel okay in this partnership. when the actuality is it's never anybody else's job to make you feel any sort of way, right? They can aid in that. They can be kind of a support system in that, but ultimately the work is ours. And so whenever I place that outside of myself, what I'm doing is essentially turning that person who I say it's their job to make me feel this way into that like kind of good enough mother, that omnipresent, this is what the mother, archetype should be. And that will erode that romantic connection. 100% of the time, it will erode that romantic connection.
Yeah. Something that I just talked to my partner about yesterday was about our healing and
Mm,
how much healing we've gone through together, like ourselves, but
yep.
through our partnership.
Yep.
And it's not that I'm relying on him for that, actually.
That's right.
It's a byproduct of us being together and showing
Yeah,
each other in such compassionate, loving ways. Like, this is the stuff. It's not like, some I can't remember if I've ever pointed stuff out to him or vice versa, but maybe like we're able to see it
that's
because
right.
of
Well,
being
it's a
together.
mirror. That's right. They
Yes.
they offer you a mirror to see yourself and to do your work on yourself, right? It's not that it's their responsibility or their job. Similar to what you were saying about you and Hector, when John and I got married last year in my vows, I said something along the lines of, it's through our partnership that for the first time in my life, I really truly know and believe that I am enough. And a lot of people in the audience were like, oh, that's so romantic. And I was like, you don't know what I'm actually saying. What I'm actually saying is it wasn't that he healed that wound in me. It was that through the continual activation of that wound in our partnership that I came to believe and to know that I was enough. There's a difference. There's a nuance in the way that I was
Mm.
speaking to it. And I'll tell you, to me, that was more romantic. I think a lot of people would have been like, oh God. I'm like, no, that's been one of the most amazing things that's come out of my partnership is that he continued to hold this mirror up to me around that not enough wound. And it gave me a platform to do my own work around it.
I think that's amazing. If we're able to look at our partnerships, our friendships, all like
All of them.
if we're right as places of containers where we can heal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not on the onus of that other person to heal us, right? Is
Yep.
that the
That's
way to
right.
put it? That's the way
That's
to
right.
look at
Yeah.
it. Okay. I also just think it's like if you're able to be super honest with the other person and be like, this is really hard for me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
know that I've got healing to do around this. And your partner or your friend or whoever that can be like, I'm here for you. I can right. That's how you can help somebody else heal.
And that takes a lot of ego strength for the other person, and it takes a lot of self knowledge and self understanding. And they've also started doing some of their own codependency work. I was just having this conversation with a client today where we were talking about something similar, and I said that same thing, like going to the partner and saying, hey, I'm totally aware that this is something I need to work on, and I'm actively working on it, but it is a struggle for me. It's such a deeply ingrained, survival strategy. And so I'm just asking for grace. And sometimes when that anxiety is too much for me to hold, if I come to you with it, all I want is just for you to contain it, right? Like, I don't need you to fix it. But I also don't want you to like shame me for it. And the biggest fear was around, well, there's no way that they will do that. There's no way. Like they won't be able to hold that. And I was like, well, number one, we don't know the answer to that. You don't know for sure without trying. But number two, if that is really the truth, then that's also information for you. That's information that you don't want to be given, because then once you're really given that information, you have to make a decision about that information.
Yes. Right. You've said emotional independence can feel threatening. Why is that? And how can we embrace it without creating distance?
Mm.
Emotional independence.
So again, I think that the way that we're raised in this society is really to believe that emotional independence or just independence in general is selfish. I hear a lot of, I mean, as somebody who tends to swing a little bit more avoidant, my friend Danae and I will laugh about this often because we both do. And we laugh about how so much out there in the zeitgeist of like pop psychology, like demonizes the air quote avoidant. and the air quote like hyper independent. And her and I have talked extensively about this idea that because we live in such a codependent society that teaches us that we have to cling, that we're not safe alone, that we have to outsource our belonging, that we have to outsource our being okay, that when somebody kind of flips that script and does the opposite, it's like, oh, well, obviously they're the problem, right? Because they're not acting as the way that our society has taught us that we're supposed to act. And so I think it feels really threatening because it feels hard to understand how somebody can be, to use a word that she uses a lot, sovereign,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I am not sovereign. Because a lot of times if I'm engaging with somebody who really is able to stand in their sense of self and say, no, I'm okay, actually, regardless of what's happening, it's confronting if I'm not like that. It's that mirror again. It holds up to me an example of myself and like, oh shit, like I actually don't have that. And so I think for a lot of people, emotional independence can feel really just confronting. It shows them. And look, again, I'm not talking hyper independence. I'm not talking like we are social creatures. We need each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there is a difference between we all need each other to survive in society, and I actually need you, Robin, the specific person, in order to survive. That's actually not true. And that anxious belief is really what keeps us kind of locked in a lot of our codependent patterns.
Right. You give an example in your book, Vanessa. I thought it was really good. And I think this pattern in partnerships is common where you are outsourcing your emotional well-being to your
Mm-hmm.
partner, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You give an example of this couple, and if he was feeling crappy on a day or low energy or just he would want to have sex with his wife because it's like that's how he's gonna that's how he gets that's how he feels better, right?
Yep.
He needs, and he actually verbalized it. He's like, well, she's my light. Like she is the one who is just always on and gives me energy. And whenever we do connect, I feel better. So he's needing that in order to soothe him. So
That's
it's
right.
not like sharing the sexual experience because you really want to connect. He wants it's you could see it though, right? Like how this can be a dynamic with people.
I see it all the time. I see it so frequently that I wrote a whole chapter about it,
Oh,
Robin.
you
Like,
did.
it's
Yes.
wild how often I see that. And it's also wild how often people are defended against seeing how kind of like insidious that pattern is. And also they're so defended against seeing how what that is you're actually like siphoning off of somebody else's life force. Like, oh, you're my light. So when I'm not in a great mood, let me use you for that, right? Like that's your purpose in my life, is for me to suck that emotional, you know, that emotional being okay, whatever that looks like, out of you. And I don't see that as depletion. I don't see that as me using you. I don't see that as me tapping into you as if you're some kind of emotional ATM, right?
Right.
And that was a hard couple because it took me a while working with him before he really understood that he really struggled to make himself feel okay in his skin without having her around to tap into. And
Yes.
there was a lot of back and forth, and I see it a lot in
And
couples.
that right there is an example of codependency because she was not having it. She's like, I can't be your source, your only source of like I can't feed you all the time. Sometimes I
No.
don't want to be that person. And he's
Well,
like,
and
well,
here,
why not? You're my wife. And why of course I want to like I'm attracted to you. And it was like, but actually you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
but this is how we've been taught. This is what we've been
Right.
taught that love should look like, right? And that's what I mean about being a codependent society. And what I see happen a lot, and the reason why so much of this book was through the lens of the motherhood myth, is because with women in particular, because I'm not a man, I can't speak to what it feels like to be a man, but I can speak to what it feels like to be a woman and a mother. A lot of women that I see in my practice, when they make that transition into motherhood, the ways that they've existed and the blueprints that they've existed under and the societal expectations and norms that they've kind of blindly co-signed and just went along to get along, they have this sudden like, oh, hell no. Number one, I see it for what it is because I have a child that I now am starting to see the ways that I'm passing things down. But
Mm.
number two, they have less capacity. They have less desire. They've got less time. They've got, right? Like I've got this being that actually needs me to take care of them and keep them alive. I can't also be taking care of you, grown person, because I'm
Yes.
focused over here. And so that's why so often motherhood for women is this huge awakening into coming back to themselves because they start questioning everything.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost like you cannot be caretaking. Okay, actually, you don't want to be like a parent to your partner.
Uh-huh.
No, no, no,
Uh-huh.
no. Right?
And you
And
and you
it's, I
start to be
think,
almost like icked out by it, like when you start
yeah,
to do it, because you probably were before, by the way,
yes,
which is a struggle for them because that non-birthing partner is usually left like with a little bit of whiplash, like, well, where did my partner go? This was always the role that you played and that I played. This was our dance, right? So I feel compassion for them as well.
yeah,
But you're right. It's like suddenly you go, I'm already a parent. I can't also be a parent here too. And by the way, again, that erodes the romantic connection. We're
yes,
not meant to have sex with our offspring. So if I'm starting to look at you as if you're my offspring, I am not going to want to also have sex with you.
exactly, exactly. How do you handle the resentment that builds when your partner's life doesn't seem to change as much as yours when
Mm,
becoming parents, or even just in general, right? It's like people are at it, like this can happen. It happens, of
happens a lot.
course. You're at different places. If you're changing and your partner's not, or right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think again, this goes a little bit into the way that we have an expectation that other people will experience the world that we experience, or that they should experience the world in the way that we think that they should experience the world.
Mm,
And I think a lot of partnership is actually a constant kind of unraveling of exactly that. Um, my partner is their own individual sovereign being, right? And they're going to respond and react to it in whatever way they are going to. And it's so common for us to not actually experience it the same way because we're not the same person, right?
yeah,
Can we have conversations about it? Are we able to come to each other and say, "Hey, I feel really alone in this experience. It would feel really supportive for me if you were able to do X, Y, and Z." Sure, like those are the kind of conversations I think we need to be strengthening our ability and our muscle around. But being resentful just because somebody's not experiencing what you're experiencing, that to me alludes a little bit to this kind of bad habit that we've got in relationships, which is like this: you're mine, you owe me this, I expect this from you. There's a little bit of like ownership in that, honestly.
there sure is, and not enough. What the way I see it is like staying keeping it clear. It's like
Yeah,
resentment is stuff you haven't figured out. It's built up,
that's
right?
right.
Whereas if you're able to be like, this is where I'm at right now, we're always constantly growing and changing. We are changing all the time.
All the
And
time.
it's like, are you able to see that in your partner? And are you still on the same page
Yeah.
as you're going and changing together? Do you feel like you're still, wanting that?
Right, right. And that's it. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, we're not justifying bad behavior. We're not justifying somebody who, expects you to do everything while they coast along. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is that are you allowing that by just staying in your resentment? Because resentment is ultimately yours to own, right? Because what happens is you get to make a choice. I can stay miserable forever and ever and make it this person's fault that I'm unhappy, or I can look at myself and I can say, what do I need to do to change it? And unfortunately, sometimes that can be the changing of a relational structure. And I'm not saying that's easy. I know that that's difficult, but that's sometimes a decision we don't want to have to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think that's it for our time, but I thank you so much, Vanessa Bennett, for being with us today.
Thank you,
I hope
Robin.
everybody reads your book. I learned so much and I loved it. I really, really did.
Thank you so much, friend. I really appreciate it.
Enjoy your day, everybody.
Okay.
Bye bye.